Hi, everybody. Welcome to Friday's Focus on Finances. My name is Jamie Fleming, and today we're going to actually talk about 6 surprising negotiation tactics that can get you the best deal. And this is on many levels of life, not just a purchase, but we're going to be talking salary. We're going to talk about how to go into collaboration and look at a way of negotiating that you may not have considered, or several ways. I recently completed the Wharton School Client Psychology program, and this was a wonderful experience that brought even more credibility to the Psychology and Money program I created back in 2006, as there are now many research-based studies linking psychology and money behaviors directly. So the Wharton professor's book, Give and Take, has had those of us in the leadership field thinking and talking. It's made numerous lists of the year's best business books, as it offers significant research-based evidence that disputes many of the influencing practices that we take to be correct. Grant's work is immensely practical and timely. It cuts to the core of influencing skills so many professionals and business owners are trying to strengthen in our current virtual distributed workforces. One of my favorite elements of Grant's work involves negotiation. Being able to negotiate well impacts so many key factors in our careers and businesses. We negotiate for our jobs and salaries, for promotions and resources with clients and in sales. And if you're in a field like law or investment banking, you're negotiating nonstop. Grant and his colleague, Northwestern University professor Adam Kalinsky, are well worth the read if you're trying to bone up on your own negotiating skills. And let's face it, aren't we all? Even the best negotiators fall prey to some of the traps that the research indicates simply do not get the best deal. So here are the recommended best practices from Grant and Kalinsky. How do yours compare? First, share information. We often approach negotiation being very guarded and wary of showing our cards. Yet while we believe this is a smart approach, it has a negative impact on our outcomes and inhibits trust. As Grant points out, people tend to be matchers and follow the norm of reciprocity, responding in kind to how we treat them. If we want to be trusted, we must offer it first. Studies have shown that revealing some information, even when it's unrelated to the negotiation, increases the outcome. You don't have to put all your cards on the table at the outset. Simply putting something of yourself out there, your hobbies, personal concerns, or hopes, can set a positive tone that's conducive to gaining agreement. The second is rank order your priorities. Typically, when we negotiate, we know what our key issues are, and we sequence them. For example, if we're trying to close a new client, we might say that the price is important, or the price is most important. And if we don't agree, then there's no use to continue. Grant recommends another approach called rank ordering. His research shows that you're able to achieve better outcomes by ranking and leaving all the issues on the table and being transparent about it. That way, both parties can compare their rankings and determine what the full set of options really are. In the above example, perhaps you could make trade-offs in scope or travel requirements if the client can't get to your price. The third is go in knowing your target price and your walkaway terms. This is so very valuable. Kalinsky calls your walkaway price or terms your reservation price. Your target price is what you're hoping for. Often we go into negotiations with one or the other, or let our partner start bidding. This puts us at a huge disadvantage. It's critical to do the research ahead of time here. You need your research to be based on firm data, as not only will it provide more confidence and power to you, but it also reduces the chance that you'll throw something crazy out there. By knowing your own range, it will help you make better decisions in the moment and be clear about your limits. The fourth is make the first offer. This is one piece of advice that clearly defies conventional wisdom. In negotiations, information is often equated with power. We believe it's best to extract as much as possible from the other person before tipping our own hand. Grant and Kalinsky both agree that the research is clear on this point. People who make first offers get better terms that are closer to their target price. The reason is the psychological principle of anchoring. Whatever the first number is on the table, both parties begin to work around it. It sets the stage. Often we are reluctant to go first because we may be way off and disengage the other party. But Kalinsky notes that this does not play out in the research. He said that most people make first offers that aren't aggressive enough. There's a reason we have the adage, you get what you pay for. Higher prices make the buyer focus on positives, while lower ones invite focus on the downsides. In other words, we find data that supports this anchor. Consider real estate. A high-priced home makes us look at all the desirable qualities, while a below-market offer brings up a bad location or needed repairs. Kalinsky says that ideally the best first offer is the one that's just outside your partner's reservation price, but not so far that they have sticker shock. The fifth is don't counter too low. If you aren't able to make the first offer, then you need to also protect yourself against the anchoring effect. So here's a cautionary note. Most people go too low too quickly. Your counter should be based on the same information you would have used if you made the offer first. You may also want to consider re-anchoring, as Grant puts it. Let the other person know that their offer is way off and go back in with a new reset. It also may be helpful to call out what you're observing to redirect the conversation. For example, you may be trying to test my thinking with the first offer, but here's more of what I had in mind. Number 6, counter offers make both parties more satisfied. Every buyer wants to feel that they got a good deal. Every seller wants to feel as though they drove a hard bargain. Parties are most satisfied on both fronts if there was some back and forth. This may come as a surprise if you're someone who abhors negotiation. So Kalinsky even advises that you shouldn't take the first offer even if it meets your needs. By going back and asking for concessions, you can ensure that you got the best deal and increase your partner satisfaction as well. More satisfied partners are more likely to work harder and be more committed to the end result, which is the ideal outcome from the start. So these are some maybe negotiation skills that you haven't heard of before or used before or thought of in a different way. So the next part of this is I want to really focus on how to get what you want, and really from a woman's negotiation perspective. And I talk about this because, we all are pretty familiar with the wage gap. Okay, the wage gap is real. On average, women make just 80 cents of every dollar of what a man makes, and the gap widens for minorities. Our contributing factor frequently given for the wage gap is that women are less likely than men to advocate for themselves. 31% of women say they are uncomfortable negotiating their salary, compared to just 23% of men. There are systemic issues and other external factors that also play a big part in the wage gap. Unconscious bias is often named as a culprit, but I think it's more the result of conscious bias and stereotypes. While I don't believe that the responsibility should be solely on women to close the wage gap, I believe there's a huge responsibility on the company side to do this. But I do believe that learning to be a better negotiator can greatly benefit us all. After all, if you don't ask for what you want, you most likely won't get it. When my daughter is struggling with different things on how to ask for something, or she's nervous, we always say that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So she's learning that quite early. I didn't think much about the wage gap when I first started in the financial industry 30 years ago. I was on a commission schedule, and the commission was the same regardless of gender. It wasn't until I took a salary job and I was paid $15,000 less than my male counterparts, simply because they had more years of experience. I had 5 years at that point, and they had 10 and 15 years of experience. That made sense to me until my annual review came up. I had produced more than both my male counterparts put together in my first year with the company. We went from 23rd out of 28 branches nationwide to 3rd that year. At my review, I simply asked to get paid as much as my male counterparts, even though I had shown to be a better producer. Now, in this situation, my manager actually said no. But a month later, after I had my financial ducks in a row, I gave my 2 weeks notice. Had I stayed, my work would have been horribly undervalued. But I now had a year of institutional experience and can now take with me that newfound knowledge to my new company. That year, I made 3 times the amount I would have made at the prior company. This is an example, a true example of working in man's world. But had I not asked for the increase, I would have likely stayed a while longer and missed out on 3 times the amount I was originally making. Over my 30-year career, that adds up to a significant amount of income that can be turned into a significant amount of wealth. I've helped clients prepare to negotiate their salary when deciding to leave their current companies. My client was joining, for example, this particular client was joining a new company. The hiring manager asked her for her salary requirements, and she simply said, "I expect to get the same compensation as others at my level." She ended up getting the best of everyone's package in terms of salary, equity, and vacation because she held the hiring manager accountable. Ask your company to pay what others are being paid at your level. Here's some things to remember about negotiating, along with tips to help you ask for and increase your odds of getting what you want. So first and foremost, you hear me say this in many areas, do the math. Even small raises make a big difference over the course of your lifetime. Imagine 2 people are given a job offer of $50,000, which is close to the average for a new college student. One negotiates an initial $5,000 bump and a 5% raise every 3 years, while the other accepts the offer and the company standard 1% increase each year without negotiating. After a 45-year career, the difference in their lifetime earnings is over $1 million, $1,062,739.19 to be exact. For my business owners, when I review their company profit and loss and balance sheets, we're looking at whether or not they're increasing their revenue and their profits, which might mean increasing their prices so that they can actually pay themselves what they're worth and what their true worth is. In doing this, my business owner clients are more apt to be saving and investing at much higher levels. Have an equality mindset. So what's holding us back from asking for what we deserve? Women may be conditioned to be accommodating and likable at the cost of advocating for themselves and may fear the backlash they see assertive women suffer. This can lead to misbeliefs about their right to ask for promotions and raises and even raising their prices and create the tendency to work harder for less. While studies have long backed this up, some new research from Australia actually finds that women may now be asking for raises just as often as men, but are less likely to get them. This further suggests that women who are trying to advocate for their own advancement may be received differently than their male counterparts. I've tried to think about the backlash more broadly, that women are told in so many ways to be smaller, to take up less space, deprive themselves. Don't eat this, don't take credit for that. Don't cause a scene, no matter how uncomfortable someone else made you. We've linked it to how women should act. What are your internal narratives about size and taking up space? And what do you metaphorically tell yourself about what you have to do? This wage revenue gap can be taking an emotional toll on many of the clients I've interviewed or I've worked with, and it actually spills over into other areas of their lives. The idea that working harder than others in the same industry doesn't necessarily translate into equal pay may be part of the reason many women opt out. We're all geared towards equity, and over time, you may give up if you feel a sense of unfairness. Intersectionality impacts negotiations. As we know from research, there are often salary gaps between women and underrepresented groups and their counterparts in the workplace. These disparities are often exacerbated as one moves up through the senior ranks of an organization. As a result, women and members of underrepresented groups have to be aware of how to negotiate strategically from the very beginning of their negotiation process. And be collaborative in your ask. I love this. Have concrete data and reasons to show why you deserve to get what you're asking for, and think about how you can frame it as a benefit to the company. Factor potential gender biases, be it explicit or unconscious, into your preparation and your approach. For example, women may be seen as needing to be collaborative and nice, One way to overcome this is to be assertive in what you're asking for while putting it in terms of benefits to your team and your company. Try saying, if I were offered a new leadership role, I could do X, Y, and Z in terms of growth of the organization. This way you're coming across as collaborative and community-oriented, which, right or wrong, is more in line with traditional gender roles. Remember that you're a natural-born negotiator. I hear women all the time saying they're not good negotiators, but it's actually, that's just actually a false statement in general. A large part of negotiation is thinking about what the other side wants and how you can help fulfill it. It's about empathy and listening to others, which women tend to be really good at. The muscle women need to flex is putting yourself in the equation, because many women find it easier to negotiate on behalf of others. It's a skill you can improve with practice, and there's even a quiz to help you discover your negotiation IQ. Compensation isn't just about money. Don't forget this. There are a lot of elements that constitutes compensation, and it's not just monetary, to which I say there are three parts usually: salary, equity, and bonuses. Don't just negotiate for salary. Negotiate for what you need so that you can stay. If you know your company and it's not in their budget to give you a raise, you can also negotiate level, job responsibilities, paid time off, things of that nature. When considering your negotiation, I explain to women and others who are often unaware that they can negotiate other perks besides their salary if you're an employee, and certainly your fees if you're a business owner. For example, what may be just as important to some people as salary is work-life balance, including more flexible hours, the ability to work off-site, etc. The research suggests that this is often key for millennials and Gen Zers, as well as women in the messy middle who may not have the same resources as those in senior and executive roles. Ask for what you're worth on behalf of women everywhere. Not only do you have a right to ask for what you're worth, you actually have a social responsibility. More financial power equals more political power that can change organizations and change the game. I work with a lot of women who are very mission and community driven. They worry that asking for more is selfish, whether they are an employee or a business owner. Asking to be compensated for the value you add is not selfish at all. You're doing it on behalf of women, and it's the only way we're going to drive equality. You can talk about money and power and still be nice. In general, women don't like to talk about money and power. You'll never get ahead if you don't own your worth. Know your value and be your greatest champion. If you don't feel like you're worth it, no one else will either. I'll leave you today with this excerpt from Give and Take. Success is not about competition, it's about contribution. The most meaningful way to succeed is to help others succeed. A mentor from my earlier years, Robert Allen, instilled in me at a very young age that the reason to make more money is to afford you the opportunity to contribute more in the world. I hope you enjoyed today's topic. If you have any questions about how to negotiate your salary or charge what you're worth for your products and services, schedule a complimentary consultation with us so we can talk about your specific situation and needs and give you some tools to get there. Thanks, everybody. I look forward to seeing you on Friday's Focus on Finances next week. Happy Friday.